Yo, it's Go and welcome to the video. I'm going to start off with some story time, so if you want to skip to the actual boss tips, I will have a timestamp in the description. But Muru has been kicking my guild's ass. No wonder it is the guild killer. Just this week, our guild has decided to go from 3 raid teams to 2 because of this boss. I'm currently at 89 attempts. The raid group that I'm in has a little over 100 now. I missed 2/3 of the first day that they were in there. And man, it has been some frustrating last couple of weeks. We've tried tons of different strategies. We've had countless different rosters or different comps, different specs people have tried, different amounts of healers. We started off pre-casting and then went to hunter pulling and resetting to now we're having hunter pull reset and we're moving to the back of the room. And as you can see, I'm out here farming some runes because I've gone through, I don't even know how many at this point. But thanks for listening to my little story time, my little rant. But let's get on into it. Alright, so here we are at the back of the room. We've had the hunter pull and feign death. So Muru's resetting, so we've all gotten into our position. I don't have an Ellie Shaman, or we didn't have one this week, so, right off the bat, getting that first resist felt bad. I start off the fight with a Fairy Fire, Moonfire, and Starfire like normal, and I have the double 4-piece, 4-piece tier 5, 4-piece tier 6, so I'm going to talk about this fight as if you're wearing that set of gear too. I think that's probably the best set of gear that most people are going to have throughout Sunwell. So to me, that just makes sense. So I've popped a rune as soon as I have used enough mana, 2000 mana, popped that, and I will pop a mana pot as soon as I've gone through about 3000 mana. So I'm on sentinel duty. If you're able to stay on Muru, that's going to really keep your DPS stronger than other Boomkins for this fight. The sentinels aren't going to have those debuffs like Curse of Elements or, Misery or Ret Paladin debuffs. We don't even have a Ret Pally, so that's just another buff that I'm not even getting on this fight. So I'm struggling on the buff department or the debuff department. Oh, they did put up Curse of Elements on this Sentinel. That's very cool. But the Moonfire was still on the ad, so it's almost not even worth putting Moonfire on the Sentinels. It's got that increased duration with the 2-piece tier 6 set. So I might switch to trying to just Insect Swarm. That'll save me a little bit of mana since I'm having to help out with the DPS on the Sentinels. Even starting right away before anybody else really casted anything on it, that Moonfire most of the time doesn't get its last tick or even like 2 ticks off before the Sentinel dies. So not worried about the Void Spawns, not worried about the humanoids, just Muru and the Sentinel. But if you are able to just focus on Muru, again, that's going to help your DPS. But I do think it's important to keep Fairy Fire up on Muru, not necessarily on the Sentinel. So my cooldowns, I've been trying to use, I have 2 unused trinkets, Skull of Gul'dan and Icon still. Trying to use those twice while Muru's up and then have them ready again for Entropus. But it's been hard to time those. Our fight times, we're going in there on pulls with lust, without lust. Really hard to figure out how many times I should be using the trinkets. But I think I should have time with our kill speed to use them twice and have them ready again for phase 2, the burn phase. So mana has been a big struggle on this fight, especially if I have to battle res somebody. So what I've been doing sometimes, some fights to get ready for phase 2 is I'll just sit there, regen some mana, melee the humanoids so that I have, at least half of my mana bar ready for that phase 2. So having an innervate on yourself is going to be extremely valuable. I'm innervating priest like so. Every single pull that we get this far into the fight, I'm always giving it to the same priest. So I know I'm not going to have that. We only have 1 Shadow Priest, and we're always in the Warlock group anyways, so I don't have that advantage of a Shadow Priest either, but that would really be extremely useful if you could somehow rotate yourself into a Shadow Priest group on this fight just to get a parse for your homepage or whatever on logs. But I am using Krieg Stout Beatdown and a Spirit Scroll, trying to keep the runes and pots on cooldown. I do try to keep the rune cooldown available for phase 2 so that I can Healthstone if I need to Healthstone to help out with the healers. I've been getting about 2 pots and 2 runes in before we even get to phase 2. And that third one I'm trying to save on the rune, but not so much the potion. So for phase 2, a really important thing is to just know where your shaman is going to be at so that you're in range of your totems. I went into the phase with almost 7,000 mana. I had just used a potion, so I felt really good going into phase 2 to where I could burn my cooldowns and hopefully push the boss. I'm an engineer, so I was throwing bombs throughout the fight too when I could. I ran out of adamantite bombs, but I've been throwing the adamantite bombs on the void spawns. It's about every other wave since it's a minute cooldown, just to try to interrupt them from casting the volleys if they're getting close to the group. So I was lucky on this attempt. I didn't get any of the dark holes beneath me. I didn't have any of the dark fiends or whatever they're called spawn from those and have to worry about them hitting me and blowing me up or anything. So that's going to be one of those RNG factors that if you have to constantly move to get out of those dark holes, you'll have to insect swarm to move, and it's just going to drop your DPS a little bit every single time that you have to move, and you still have to focus on those totems. But one thing that really was hurting my mana was, the lack of that ret pally to keep up that judgment of wisdom. All these little things for our mana really add up for this fight. I did switch to downranking from rank 6 starfires to try to conserve some mana. A couple of arcane bombs, which are a little bit risky since the range on them isn't that far, so you almost have to be in range of their shadow volley in order to even throw it. Then it's got a cast time, so I ran out of the adamantite and had a couple of those on me. And you can see this big gap in my casts right here, which is not what you want to see when you're looking at your casts on any fight. This is when I was meleeing to try to get some mana back. The orange here is the downranked Starfire. I downranked for a little bit. I should have started downranking a little bit earlier in the fight. If you find yourself without some of these things to help you with your mana pool, even if you do have wisdom on the boss, most likely not going to have wisdom on the boss and the sentinel. So if you're having to switch to the sentinel, all those casts aren't going to get any of those mana procs. So I think if we were a little bit cleaner on this attempt, it would have been about a 6-minute fight. And I still think I would have had my cooldowns about the same way to make sure that I had both up for phase 2. Pop them right at the start. Once again, right after they're off cooldown. If I would have popped them the third time off of cooldown again, then they wouldn't have been up and ready for that phase 2. So personally, I'm going to keep it like that. And as the fight length gets shorter and shorter, it's just going to have better uptime on those trinkets overall and be a little bit of a DPS boost. But I was trying to keep Fairy Fire up on Muru for the hunters, even when I was switching to the sentinels to make sure they weren't losing out on their hit or the armor reduction, and also trying to re-up Moonfire before switching to the Sentinel, since Moonfire is getting the benefit of all of those debuffs that are on the boss, and hoping that the Sentinel will go down fast enough that when I switch back I might get one boosted Starfire cast off before that Moonfire expires. And another thing I just noticed looking back at the log is that the shaman in my group didn't even have the mana totem down, so I wasn't even getting mana from the totem. It's like 20 mana every 2 seconds, which over a 6-minute fight really adds up. So after 89 attempts, still no kill to show for it. So if you have any other tips after doing this boss that you would like to share, please do so down in the comments. But for now, wish me luck on these demonic rune drops, and I'll see you in the next one.
Everybody wipe now. What the fuck? Come on. What are these mistakes? Stop. I've never seriously raged in raid before. I don't think ever, but I'm so fucking close to just popping off. What the fuck are we doing right now? We've spent, what, 50 hours on this boss now? What the fuck are we doing?